Are you one of the 60 or so MPs who are warning the Prime Minister against a customs partnership?
Actually, the document I think that you're referring to today is a fairly substantial document in which it actually simply looks at what those future relationships can be, and it makes the very considered point that the proposed customs partnership is unbelievably complicated. It will lead to great confusion, and it'll mean that we really won't be able to do proper trade deals with other countries. So it's been laid out very, very clearly. The alternative one, which is this improved and speeded up process at the borders, is the one they should use because it's the simplest. And, you know, after 6 years running a government department, I can tell you, simple is always best.
It's so unacceptable to you because we're being told that it will resolve the Northern Ireland border question and will result in frictionless trade.
No, there's always, I think there's a golden rule that really runs when you are involved with civil servants and the government generally, which is always push them back to ask the simple question, what is it you're trying to solve? If you try and solve lots of different problems at the same time, it almost invariably leads to a mess. And we've seen endlessly government programs that simply crash and burn because they were too complicated, trying to solve too many problems. The single problem they have to solve is what is the best way to ensure that our future trading relationship, whatever that is finally negotiated to be, and hopefully it's a free trade one, will actually be able to cross the borders, goods and services, with the minimal amount of fuss.
How do we do that?
Well, that is by the other proposal they have, which is to ensure that lots and lots of this, a majority of it, is done. Any goods going across into Europe are declared in advance, they're checked, they're sealed, all that sort of stuff that goes on now in many places. In fact, the European Parliament said this is the right way to do it. Keeping it simple, there's no need for a hard border with Northern Ireland. And the key thing here is we want to be able to say that if we do a trade deal with the United States or who knows, whatever country, Japan or wherever, we want to be able to say that if we agree free trade, it's immediate free trade for both sides. The problem with this proposal is you would have to also align all the regulations that the European Union has, and they're going to add to those endlessly, which will encumber businesses dramatically. You're going to have to add to those, have them all comply with that, even though they may not be selling into Europe. They may only be selling into the UK.
But
so
your suggestion there sounds like more
complication.
bureaucracy and more red tape, which is something that we were told we wouldn't see in the run-up to the referendum, that there would be less red tape.
Yes, I agree. Well, that's exactly the point of why we want why the proposals for this new customs partnership simply don't add up, because they add to complexity, because, you know, you'll have to have a rebate if you don't sell to the European Union.
The same as your plan, doesn't it?
Sorry?
Same as your plan, doesn't it?
No, that's not my plan. The new customs partnership...
There'd be more bureaucracy, more red tape.
The new customs partnership is not my plan. I think it therefore complicates. My view about this is we want to get on to a trade arrangement with them based on free trade, and the borders, that is the moment in which goods cross the borders and services, to be as frictionless as possible. And I think the other proposal they've got on the table is the right one for that, because it means you have to change things to a very minimum degree, and all of that is doable, and it's being done. You know, if you look at the Swiss border, they're out of the customs union. They trade with Europe actually to a far higher degree than we do.
But they have free movement.
They'll tell you straight away that the goods, the free,
but they have free movement.
Free movement isn't anything to do with the passage of goods. That's to do with people. This is to do with the selling of goods, etc. And the goods there are hardly stopped at all at any stage and then only checked. And after all, you know, coming goods back and forth across the border checked for illegal migrants happens all the time anyway. So,
but they have free movements, and that's what people voted against, isn't it?
You know, I'm not asking for us to have the Swiss system. I'm simply isolating one element of it, which is that they are not in the customs union. They are outside the customs union. They strike trade deals with other countries. The point that I make is if you look at the border arrangements between them and the European Union, they are infinitely much, much simpler than this plan. And then if you go to Turkey, which is in the customs union, their border is solid. In other words, there's barriers everywhere, and you don't get the trade across in that free-flowing way. So this customs partnership does not solve the problem of making sure that we get a very frictionless border, and I think the other plan does.
The Prime Minister's Deputy, David Lidington, has said that she is trying to do the very best for everybody in all parts of the country. But when the correspondent says that the customs partnership would lead to the collapse of the government, I mean, you're holding her feet to the fire here.
Well, not really. I simply have this simple view, which is that we, as a parliament...
But it's a threat, isn't it?
Well, if you want to ask me a question, let me finish the answer, will you? We, as a government, were elected on the basis at the last election that we were leaving the customs union, leaving the single market, and we would deliver Brexit. And I think the public has a right to expect that we do just that. We deliver Brexit, which is what was voted for. Lots of people don't like it. The Lords at the moment are doing their level best to stop Brexit, but the reality is, if you give the public a choice, they made that choice. We need to get on with it. And
the 16 million people voted for Remain.
yeah, look, lots of people vote for a different party at a general election. You don't say, oh, that's quite close, therefore you don't form a government. If you have a majority, you form a government. If you go to the polls and the polls tell you by the public vote that you have won, this is the biggest vote ever. Those who voted to leave were the majority. We gave them that chance to say so. They've given us a direction. We now have to deliver it. I mean, if you're going to start quibbling about whether or not you had a certain amount of votes, which means you have a right to stop it, you don't. The public voted to leave, and we just have to get on with it.
Are you honestly prepared to bring down the government on this?
No, there's no threats in this. This is an argument about what is best. This is not a threat. This is about saying, look, there is a debate about this. Here are the reasons why the new customs partnership doesn't work. And honestly, it's not helped if you try and reduce it to a simplistic process of saying this is some kind of threat. It's not. After all, what is debate all about? It's about making sure your case is presented so you persuade people that the best way to do something is the way that you think it is. And that's exactly what is going on here. The new customs partnership is quite obviously a bad deal for the UK, and the other alternative is better.